Hello and welcome to Tom's Comic Curios, where you'll often hear about comic books that you don't hear about anywhere else. Today on the show we have a comic book that is very obscure and that you definitely aren't going to hear about anywhere else. It's called Oil Man. It's a small comic book. If you compare it to a regular sized comic book, you will see there's a Dork Tower comic book. Now, you compare that, you see it's quite a bit smaller. And this is a regular sized comic book. So, what is this exactly? You might be wondering. This is the first, it says on the cover, it says, the first 100% computerized Novic book. Yes, Novic book. And computerized as well. So this entire comic was done on a computer back in the mid-1980s. So it's set in New Jersey. There's very little information on this comic book on the internet. So I'm not really sure where this, it came from New Jersey, obviously, but I don't know if it was given away as a freebie at a gas station or something, because that's what it seems like, if you read this. We'll look through this together. Actually, no, there's a price on it. There's a price right there. It says, our price, $1.74.9. So this comic book costs $1.74.9. So that's an unusual price, I would say. And it says approved by the Computerized Comics Code of the United States. So that's a joke, obviously. There is no such thing. But it says Peter Petrol is Oil Man, Living Oil. And this book, number 1, is the origin of the Oil Man trilogy. Episode 1, Peter's Predicament. So that's Peter Petrol that we see here. And it says, inside, meet Peter Petrol, young New Jersey chemical engineering student and part-time service station attendant. Meet Pops Petrol, Peter's kindly grandfather and owner of the humble Woodbridge, New Jersey USSO filler-up. So it makes you wonder if that's a real gas station in New Jersey. Meet Professor William Howe, world-renowned synthetic fossil fuel expert and Trenton State Technical College faculty member. This book includes the first exciting chapter in the origin of Oil Man, the first in a serialized collection of suitable for framing special bonus cutout Oil Man poster pages. So that's pretty incredible. The first in a series of informative articles chronicling the current state of the art in microcomputer graphics. So, this is true. There's an editorial in this comic book which tells you all about the technical expertise, or not the technical requirements or whatever, the specs of putting this comic book together. The author, an artist, tells you how he did it on his computer, what programs he used. And that's pretty neat because, this is the mid-1980s. So he's talking about using an Apple Macintosh and using a Mac Paint. So he describes Mac Paint to you and tells you how he uses it to make this comic book. And something called Apple Image Writer, Color Print, Page Maker. So these are the incredible programs he used to make this comic book. A Thunderscan Magic Video Digitizer and Thunderscan Hard Copy Scanner. Yes, so this was done on an Apple Macintosh. Here's the poster page at the back of the Novic book, because he doesn't call it a comic book, you see. So you can put that up on your wall or something if you'd like. It says, greetings from Pops Petrol's filler-up. So is Pops Petrol's filler up a real gas station? Was it a real gas station in the 80s? I don't know. I think I've tried to Google it, but I didn't come up with anything. If anybody knows, if anybody can find out anything, write it in the comment section. On the back of it, there's a map of New Jersey here. And the Automobile Association of America, maybe they put this comic out. Maybe they gave it away free at gas stations. I don't know. But what is a Novic book? So we still haven't answered that question. It is explained that the Oil Man is not a comic book in the conventional sense. It is a Novic book, the blending together of large blocks of narrative text as would be found in a novel with comic book style word balloons and pictorial graphics. So that's what a Novic book is. And this, again, is the first 100% computer-created Novic book. What you see on paper as the final printed image is what the author-illustrator saw while creating Oil Man on a CRT screen. And it goes into a lot of detail about it. The publication company is Unknown Publications. That is the name of the company, Unknown Publications. P.O. Box 225, Midwood Station, Brooklyn, New York, 11230. So that's interesting. And they said, if you send us a postcard, we'll give you advance notice concerning the release date of Oil Man Episode 2. So I don't know that Oil Man Episode 2 ever came out. I don't think it did. I think this was the only one. Which is really funny because it's about this guy that turns into Oil Man. This Peter Petrol guy. But in this origin issue, he doesn't turn into Oil Man at all. I guess they were saving it for the second issue. And since there never was a second issue, we never get to actually see him become Oil Man, but I assume that's what it would look like on the right there, would be Oil Man. That's the only glimpse we really get of what Oil Man might have looked like had there been a second issue. So, when this starts off, it says, I'll read you the prologue. Working alone in a small homemade laboratory. Oh, by the way, before I get to that, the editor and publisher is Gus O'Line. So that's obviously a joke, like gasoline. Gasoline. Written and illustrated by J.H. Rosen. So J.H. Rosen is probably the actual guy that did this book. So back to the prologue. Working alone in a small homemade laboratory, a young chemical engineering student accidentally spills a complex mixture of rare chemicals into a burpsy cola drink. Building up a thirst from the strain of creating complicated chemical formulas, the young student innocently sips his burpsy, unaware of the accidental spillage moments before. And then suddenly, as if in a frozen instant of time, in a whirlwind blur of crude oil and thick grease, the young chemical engineering student undergoes a startling metamorphosis. And he becomes Oil Man. But not in this issue. That was actually the part before the prologue. I mean, that's the only transformation you see. That's the only glimpse of Oil Man that you see. So the next page is a description of New Jersey and what New Jersey is known for. So there's the population of New Jersey. Everybody looks the same, as you could see, in New Jersey. Maybe making this on the computer, he was too difficult to create different graphics for each person. So he just copy and pasted, I don't know. And it's known for refineries and, oil places, automobiles, chemicals. So we go into that about New Jersey, and then there's a character capsule of different characters. So the first one we meet is Professor William Howe. That's Peter's professor there. See, it's got a descriptive photograph of him there, describing different attributes of Peter. Not Peter, but William Howe, the professor. Yeah, and it goes into details about him. which is interesting, like his background and everything. I'm not going to read it all right now, but Episode 1, Peter's Predicament. A large red bell sounds loudly, signifying the end of another stimulating Trenton Tech lecture period. So the professor's saying, remember, no excuses. Term project proposals are due tomorrow. Class dismissed. As the future scientists file out of the huge lecture hall, one of the professor's more prodigal pupils ponders his predicament. Lots of P's in that sentence. Peter Petrol, may I have a word with you? Says Professor William Howe. Peter's thinking, only one day to go till tomorrow, and still no ideas for my term project. So there's all the students filing out. I like, weird, curious comics like this. This is definitely a novelty. It's kind of interesting that it was all created on a Macintosh computer in the mid-'80s. It's kind of impressive if you think about it, considering the time it was done. With Professor Howe, a word usually means more than one. Oh, I hope the professor isn't going to ask me about my term project. Professor says, Peter, have you decided on a topic for your term project yet? And Peter says, no, Professor, I'm still working on it. So there they are talking to each other, and he goes on for a while, the professor saying, oh, I know you're going to come up with a good project. He's very long-winded. He just keeps going on. Peter's getting tired of listening to him just go on and on and on. He mentions Peter's parents, Jonathan and Sarah Petrol, who are deceased. And he says, if it wasn't for them, I might never have come up with my own proposal in time for my senior year term project. So he starts saying, oh, I'll never forget that project. He's going to talk about that. And basically, this is Peter on his way home. See, there's a very busy rush hour here. He still doesn't know what he's going to do for his project. Down here we see a bunch of trucks and things on the highway. His parents apparently died in a car accident on this highway. In that picture, 20 years previously. It's very sad. Price wars. This is about price wars and gasoline stations here. Showing some different gasoline stations. And then we have a character profile of Peter Petrol. So it says, young Trenton Tech College student Peter Petrol has aspired all his life to become a famous chemical engineer. Thanks to the goodness of the state of New Jersey, manifesting itself in the form of a free public education in the applied sciences, he is able to fulfill his dream. Orphaned at the tender age of 2 by the untimely death of his scientist parents, Jonathan and Sarah Petrol, Peter has since spent his formative years frolicking amid the grease pits, or grease guns, and fuel fumes at his grandfather's service station. So he lives with his grandfather. He's coming in there, he's driving back to his grandfather's service station, and his grandfather says, hello, Petey. There we see his grandfather, and we see Peter. Pops was the only person who referred to the youngest Petrol as Petey, a practice which Peter, on most occasions, politely tolerated. How was your day of higher education, Petey? Says his grandfather. I've told you 1,000 times, Gramps. I don't like being called Petey. He says, what's the matter, Petey? Something happened at school today? He says, I'm sorry, Grandpa. It's just that I must turn in my term project proposal for Professor Howe's Introduction to the Theory of Synthetic Fossil Fuel Substitutes class by tomorrow, and I still haven't thought of an idea yet. So he spent half the comic just talking about how he can't think of an idea for his project. Of course, we had a lot of background information too, quite a bit of exposition. Talk of fossil fuel substitutes jolts in Pop's mind a memory of his late son Jonathan. A chain reaction occurs. Spark plugs fire deep within the old timer's gray matter, unleashing an idea that might be of help to the troubled Peter. So that's him thinking, and that's an idea forming in his head, and he says, I think I have an idea. Not believing that his grandfather could come up with a helpful idea. It's not very nice, Peter. Peter reluctantly listens as Pops begins to explain. So, Pop says, while your father was still a student at Trenton Tech, he built a small laboratory in the men's room behind the service station. That's weird. Okay, when Jonathan graduated from Trenton Tech and became an important scientist, I packed up his old lab equipment in a cardboard box and placed it on one of the storage shelves behind the repair pits. Perhaps if you set up your dad's old laboratory equipment in the men's room like he did, you will come up with an idea for your term project. That's funny that that's an important aspect. He has to set it up in the men's room. So the idea comes back to him, or comes to him. To Peter's surprise, Pop's idea wasn't so bad after all. Together, the oldest and youngest Petrol head for the storage shelves and Jonathan's old lab equipment. He says, why did Dad set up his laboratory in the men's room? And he says, your dad's experiments always required plenty of running water, Petey. So that's why he set up in the men's room. He needed running water. In the men's room, he had all the plumbing his experiments ever needed. Jonathan would hang an out-of-order sign on the door and go into his laboratory for hours. So does this mean people couldn't get in the bathroom when he was working on his experiments? Because that wouldn't be very good. He would create all kinds of different formulas, lowering the water pressure for miles around. He was a great scientist, Petey. And then they have a character. Okay, so that was this part here. I just read to you. Then we have a character profile of Pops Petrol. What I think is funny about this is the detail that the author goes into about the characters in this comic. And it seems like it's kind of irrelevant detail. Not all of it, but some of it. I'll show you what I mean. So it says, kindly Pops Petrol has spent his entire life in the service of pumping gas from his tanks and goodness from his heart to the proletariat peoples of Woodbridge at his humble USSO filler-up. Pop spends most of his time in full USSO official uniform dress code, except for when he goes bowling on Wednesday evenings at the Woodbridge Lucky Lanes. He then wears his special Sextogerian Bowling League team jersey and form-fitting black satin pants. Or on Saturday evenings when he goes with his friends to the Trenton Senior Citizen Center for bingo and dancing night. For those evenings, Pops likes to wear his three-piece Fuchsi's colored polyester leisure suit, which he purchased at J.C. Penney's after seeing Saturday Night Fever at the Woodbridge Cinema Sixplex in 1977. See, that's what I mean. Like, look at the detail this goes into. It's weird that all that detail is needed for this story, because it really doesn't tie into the story. Maybe it would later on if there had been more issues. This part is more pertinent. It says, since the untimely death of his scientist son, to the story Jonathan and daughter-in-law Sarah, Pops has raised his grandson Peter, whom Pops affectionately refers to as Petey. Even though Pops has a big heart and tries very hard, he has always been more comfortable around car motors and gasoline than small children and animals. Unfortunately for Peter, he did not come with a mechanic's repair manual, so Pops has had to rely on his own imagination for the proper care and feeding of the poor orphan child. This task Pops has accomplished without the aid of his wife, who several months before the death of Jonathan and Sarah ran off with an out-of-town traveling salesman who had stopped at the filler-up for gas. Taking care of the orphaned... Okay, wait a second. So his wife ran off with a customer who just stopped at his gas station for gas one day. That's weird, too. I mean, she didn't know the guy previously? She just ran off with a guy? that was a customer? Taking care of the orphan Peter has helped to keep the loss of his wife, son, and daughter, in-law off poor Pop's gasoline-soaked mind. Okay. Pop's greatest pleasures in life are his grandson Petey, bowling at Lucky Lanes, bingo and dancing night, and touring the 352 cubic inch sweepstakes V8 engine in his 1956 Studebaker Power Hawk Coupe. That was tuning, by the way, not touring. Peering past a potpourri of old auto parts, it doesn't take long for Pop's bespectacled peepers to zero in on the large cardboard box containing Jonathan's old lab equipment. A place for everything and everything in its place, Pop's always said. So then we get to see a view of the garage. And we see all the equipment there, and we see it labeled for us, and very exciting, as you can see. So he gets down the old box, the old equipment. He looks in the box, but a lot of grimy dust comes off of the box because it hasn't been opened in a long time. They open it up, and you can see all the things that they find there. That's all the old equipment of his dad's floating around them there. And it says, Petey sure looks excited. Just like I told you, Petey, there's all sorts of great stuff in here, Grandpa. So then we go into detail about what he finds in the box. We have test tubes, we have beakers, and it has like the brand names and everything. The burners, the chemicals, the piping, rubber gloves, and his secret laboratory notes. So that's pretty neat. And then the last page of the story is this page. And it says, seeing his grandson so excited made kindly old Pops Petrol very happy. I hope I was helpful, Petey, but I have to go and get ready now for tonight's big USSO, not USO, that's different, USSO sponsored bowling league tournament at the Woodbridge Lucky Lanes. I hope you don't mind me leaving you here all alone to watch the filler up. What with your term project proposal due tomorrow morning and all, the boys from my senior citizens group are counting on me to help them win the Sextogerian Division Trophy. And he's thinking Peter is so happy here. Petey, okay, he calls him. And Petey's thinking, this stuff is just great. You go ahead and enjoy yourself, Grandpa. I'll keep an eye on the filler up while I'm setting up Dad's old lab equipment. Besides, with most of Woodbridge at Lucky Lanes to watch the big tournament, business will be slow anyway. I'll probably shut the pumps down early. This stuff is just great. Then we have the epilogue. The better part of an afternoon, a full evening, and a long night still remained for Peter to come up with a neato term project proposal. The better part of an afternoon, a full evening, and a long night before Professor Howe's deadline decree of tomorrow. He's thinking, with Dad's old lab notes and all this cool equipment, I'm sure to come up with a great term project proposal. I know I'll recreate one of Dad's old experiments. That's sure to please the professor. So that's his idea. He's going to recreate one of his dad's experiments. And it feels like it took a long time to get there. Maybe that's just me. And that's it. Again, we don't actually get to see him become Oil Man. Despite the promise of Oil Man on the cover. Because there is no second issue as far as I know. It says in the next issue, we would have seen these things. Begin to learn the secrets of Jonathan Petrol's long-lost spiral-bound lab notes. See Peter Petrol attempt to set up his dad's old laboratory equipment in the service station men's room. See Peter Petrol battle the most vicious species of fly known to mankind for territorial possession of the laboratory. So there's going to be a big fly in the next issue, or at least a frightening fly. Learn about police forensic chemistry as Peter Petrol studies the case history of Philadelphia's 1985 move incident in his struggle to rid the men's room of its insidious insect invaders. See Pops Petrol preen his appearance in preparation for the big bowling tournament at the Woodbridge Lucky Lanes. So we get to see Pops Petrol combing his hair and stuff, I guess, and just preparing for the Lucky Lanes tournament. Um, Episode 2, New Jersey Restrumus Insectus. That's what it was going to be called. And they put it all as one word, so it was hard to read. Spelled very strangely, just to be funny. And there's your poster again. So you can cut out this poster, put it on your wall. You're a big fan of Oil Man. So that's Oil Man. That's an odd comic. See, I like to show you odd comics as well as really good treasures, that you might not know about. So this was just a weird one. So let me know what you thought about it. Maybe you liked it. Maybe you just thought it was weird. But let me know in the comments what you think. And what kind of comic books you like to see the best. Do you like these odd comics? Or do you like the quality, like, undiscovered titles? Or do you just like both? You can let me know if you want, or just let me know what you think of Oil Man. And if you can figure out if this might have been given away at gas stations or something, because I don't know where it would have been sold. That price is so strange too. $1.74 and 9/10. That would be difficult to pay for. Interesting. Well, anyway, until next time, I'll see all of you.